Chapter 264, 1 Above the Great Tao. The moment that Chen Ping'an raised the calligraphy brush to draw the talisman, the flood dragons and their kin in the flood dragon trench had already started to move under the command of the elderly golden flood dragon. Moreover, they were going all out even if they were facing weaker enemies, with the hundreds upon thousands of flood dragons and their kin lurking in the trench rushing out and charging toward Osmanthus Island along with the towering seawater. Only the region where the elderly golden flood dragon lay coiled appeared especially calm. The old boatman tossed the Dragon King basket in his hand beside his feet. Whether this young flood dragon lived or died was already irrelevant and unable to change the course of the current events. The old boatman glanced at the young boy behind him, and it was as if the young boy with a sword case on his back were bathing in the white and pure glow of moonlight. Chen Ping'an, his calligraphy brush, and the talisman paper had seemingly become one, and it was as if they were in a small world that measured 3 meters in each direction. The old boatman couldn't help but silently praise Chen Ping'an. This young boy was truly displaying signs of being very impressive. Even though his cultivation base was low, this had little to do with the level of one's cultivation. The old boatman had to admit that he hadn't possessed such an impressive spirit and aura when he was young. He quickly retracted his gaze and said in a quiet voice, "Lady Gui, Osmanthus Island is facing a huge crisis right now, so why don't you hand the safety of Chen Ping'an and this talisman to me for the moment? You only need to focus on protecting Osmanthus Island. Also, tell Ma Zhai and the others to make haste and warn all of the passengers on the mountain about the danger. Tell the passengers not to hide their strength and cultivation anymore. They can sort out their differences and calculate the necessary remuneration and compensation after Osmanthus Island makes it through this crisis. The old flood dragon's decision to target us this time is extremely strange. Moreover, judging from its method of killing that golden core tier sword cultivator, it's either advanced to the upper 5 tiers or someone has secretly set up a formation in the flood dragon trench, transforming this location into something akin to a Confucian school or academy," Lady Gui replied. "Perhaps a profound figure from some heretical force has taken a fancy to this region and given this old flood dragon the power and confidence to challenge the Confucian sages in southern Wural continent. In any case, regardless of whether it's at the unpolished jade tier or it's a pseudo-sage, it will definitely be very difficult for you to deal with it alone." Lady Gui appeared slightly hesitant, and she didn't hurry back to Osmanthus Island straight away. In fact, she purposely spoke at a slower speed than normal, using this time to weigh things up. After so many years of cultivation, Lady Gui understood that doing one proper thing was better than doing 10 or 100 random things during difficult times like this. As if breaking through an embankment, seawater crashed down from 3 directions, surging toward Osmanthus Island at the bottom of the bowl. Apart from the ancestor Osmanthus tree on the peak of the mountain, all of the over 1,000 Osmanthus trees on Osmanthus Island shed leaves at this moment. Before these leaves could fall to the ground, however, they all rose into the air in a structured manner. Gradually coming to a stop in midair, the leaves formed a dome that enveloped Osmanthus Island. The next moment, the Osmanthus leaves instantly combusted and disintegrated into dust, leaving only orbs of emerald green spiritual energy in their place. These Osmanthus leaf spiritual orbs were as large as wild chestnuts, and wisps of green threads extended from them and connected with the surrounding orbs. The sea churned violently, and Osmanthus Island was like a small lone boat amid it. As the spiritual energy of the Osmanthus leaves weaved and connected, it was as if Osmanthus Island were a boatman that had cast a large net. However, this net wasn't for fishing, but rather for blocking the imminent downpour. When the seawater slammed into the large net, waves churned and exploded into the surroundings. However, not a single drop of water was able to seep through the large net and land on Osmanthus Island. The island only shook slightly, and the mountain peaks split open as branches and leaves started to rapidly grow from the ancestor Osmanthus tree in a mystical sight. Many pits appeared, revealing the snaking roots of the old Osmanthus tree. Following this, Osmanthus Island began to slowly rise into the air. In fact, it surprisingly appeared as if the island were attempting to withstand the powerful attacks from the sea and rise into the air, forcefully fleeing from the flood dragon trench. There were many small water dragons, with horns on their heads, and these water dragons were the most ferocious as they charged and attacked Osmanthus Island. They lunged at the large net one after another, and they used their sharp claws to tear at the formation of Osmanthus leaves. Some even used their heads to smash the formation. These types of small water dragons were noble and honorable members of the flood dragonkin, and they used to have a relatively close relationship with the true dragons of yore, who had ruled over the 5 lakes and 4 seas in earlier times. The difference between small water dragons and snakes or carps was like the difference between heaven and earth. There was only the additional description of water in their title, yet this made the status of small water dragons slightly inferior to that of pure small dragons. The latter were genuine relatives of true dragons, while the former were offspring resulting from the copulation between large dragons and azure sea serpents. Thus, small water dragons were also referred to as small azure dragons. Along with white hornless dragons that enjoyed hiding themselves in majestic mountains and gorgeous peaks, these two creatures that occupied the deep sea and land, respectively, often found themselves in the essays of scholars and literati. They were also frequent guests in poems composed by traveling poets. Many descendants of flood dragons followed behind these small water dragons, violently slamming into the large formation. Some also unleashed their powerful and innate water element mystical powers, causing tons of seawater to violently slam into the large net. The old boatman's heart ached when he saw this. After all, Lady Gui was sacrificing her hard-earned earth immortal cultivation in order to maintain this formation. The fundamental vital energy of her true form was depleting rapidly, yet she was willing to endure this to fight for everyone's survival, no matter how slim the chances. Ma Jai, who was on the island, had most likely informed the passengers about the situation already. However, it was still unclear whether the passengers would be willing to work together to overcome this grave situation. While Chen Ping'an continued to exert his full power to draw the lock-slashing talisman, the elderly golden flood dragon ordered his subordinates in the flood dragon trench to attack and breach the defenses of Osmanthus Island in a single go. However, it didn't show any signs of wanting to attack along with the other flood dragons, and it simply pondered for a brief moment before swaying its large golden body that measured 300 meters in length and slowly swimming toward the edge of the clear sea. A few moments later, a dignified and mighty-looking old man dressed in a long golden robe walked out from the ripples on the surface of the sea. His eyebrows were extremely long, so long that they reached his chest. He walked forward in the sky, completely ignoring Lady Gui. In fact, the old man in golden robes paid no attention to the life or death of that young flood dragon either. He was like a traveler slowly descending a mountain and peering down at the world as he did so. He was looking down at the 2 small boats and 3 people at the foot of the mountain. The elderly golden flood dragon didn't stop walking forward as he looked at the young boy. He smiled faintly and said, "Boy, I simply viewed you as young and naive when you made changes to that dragon-beating pole and wantonly drew the lock-slashing talisman. I allowed you to secretly hide those 2 flying swords. However, if you insist on pushing your luck." The old boatman steered his small boat such that he was shielding Chen Ping'an and the small boat that he was in. He looked up at the old beast whose temperament had changed drastically, and he sneered, "So what if he's pushing his luck? Perhaps we should offer our necks and beg for a quick and comfortable death. Perhaps we should beg you vile beasts to swallow us in one go instead of slowly chewing on us." The elderly golden flood dragon shot a sideways glance at the old boatman and chuckled. "It was you people who broke the rules, so it's a given that all of you have to die. As for how you die, this isn't all that important. Did you forget already? After you people die, we can slowly unravel your souls and make each of them into dozens of candles. After lighting these candles and placing them in the depths of the flood dragon trench, you'll be forced to endure the agonizing pain of being eaten away by the bitter cold. This is even more torturous than being dismembered by 5 horses or being sliced into tens of thousands of pieces. This is especially the case for golden core tier cultivators like you. The higher one's cultivation, the higher the quality of the candles. After saying this, the old man in gold robes sighed and came to a stop. He held a single hand behind his back and used his other hand to stroke his long golden eyebrows that were hanging in front of his chest. He sighed in exasperation and lamented, "Young boy, I and the boatman from the Fan clan have already bought so much time for you, yet you still haven't completed a single lock-slashing talisman that carries the decree of the rain gods yet. Are disciples from the talismanic branch of the Taoist sect becoming more and more incompetent, or are you a talentless disciple who lacks the skill to properly draw a talisman? Or perhaps this talisman is too powerful, and the talisman paper is too precious, so it's causing your strokes to become a little challenging. No matter, it's already been many years since I last witnessed and experienced the power of a lock-slashing talisman. I miss it dearly, so I can afford to wait for you to finish. Take your time, young boy, there's no need to hurry." Lady Gui sighed with sorrow. The old boatman was also feeling similarly glum. This was the terrifying nature of a region controlled by a sage. This was similar to a Confucian sage residing in a school or academy, a true lord residing in a Taoist temple, an arhat residing in a Buddhist temple, or a martial sage exercising control over a battlefield. To commit such brutal acts of violence, are you not afraid of the Confucian sages from southern Wural continent holding you accountable? The extremely pale Lady Gui questioned in a stern voice. The elderly golden flood dragon's expression was as if it were taking pity on her, and it replied, "Lady Gui, oh Lady Gui, you shouldn't have stayed in a rotten little place like Old Dragon City. You were simply trapping yourself inside a cocoon. You failed to do anything for so many years, and you became oblivious to the things happening in the outside world. How can you understand the current unstoppable trend of the world? Those who follow the trend live, and those who oppose the trend die. Lady Gui, even though I've coveted your true form for so many years, I'm still willing to give you one final chance seeing that you have such a noble status. Surrender to me and enjoy a glorious rise with the flood dragon trench. What do you say?" Lady Gui chuckled coldly and replied, "I truly wonder if you would still dare to utter such nonsense if a Confucian sage were present. To say nothing of a sage, even a noble scholar would be enough to make you tremble in fear, am I right?" The old man in golden robes shook his head with a smile. "Times have changed, and this is the reason why I called you out for being oblivious. So be it, those with different aspirations will ultimately walk different paths. After eating you, I can smoothly advance to the unpolished jade tier. At that time, what will it matter even if the Confucian sage from the Yingyan Chen clan leaves his academy to hold me accountable? What can he do?" The old flood dragon cracked a menacing grin and continued, "I'm aware that you're still unwilling to give up. You thought that I was purposely acting mysterious just then, so you still held onto a sliver of hope, and thus allowed that young boy to draw the lock-slashing talisman. You want him to frighten all of the flood dragons and their kin in the flood dragon trench, apart from me, of course. Have a look, why don't you? I still granted you your wish. Do you still think that I'm bluffing and purposely acting mysterious?" The old man in golden robes took a single stride and instantly arrived a few dozen meters away from the small boat that Chen Ping'an was sitting in. However, like a meditating old monk who paid no heed to worldly matters, Chen Ping'an completely ignored the approach of the old man. He continued to slowly draw the lock-slashing talisman. Lady Gui and the old boatman both reacted at the same time. Lady Gui immediately threw an osmanthus branch over, and when it landed on the small boat, she silently recited, "Take root and rest against the sky." The osmanthus branch instantly sprouted and grew into a small osmanthus tree with lush and dense leaves. Golden osmanthus flowers bloomed, and their sweet fragrance quickly filled the air. The osmanthus tree was 3 meters tall, and its shade completely shielded Chen Ping'an. Meanwhile, the old boatman quickly formed hand seals and silently recited a mantra. At the same time, he forcefully stomped his feet into the small boat that he was in. He held his palms together with his fingers intertwined, and a dazzling light started to seep out from the gaps between his fingers. The old boatman then pressed his thumb from one hand against his heart, while pointing his pinky from his other hand toward the elderly golden flood dragon. After he completed these hand seals, a bright red flame wrapped his entire body and made him appear like a heavenly official wearing a fiery red robe. Countless sanguine symbols appeared on his forehead, and he furiously roared, "Golden crow spreads its wings, fire god boils water." From the small boat under the old boatman's feet to the location where the old man in golden robes was standing, it was as if the sea were boiling water in a kettle. Vapor rose into the air, after which countless golden crows emerged from within it. With trails of scorching flames behind them, the golden crows rapidly swooped down at the old flood dragon one after another. However, the elderly golden flood dragon simply flicked his sleeve in a casual manner, dragging 2 blue water dragons from the sea. The blue water dragons rose beside him and crashed into the golden crows, instantly engulfing and annihilating dozens of them. Even though the blue water dragons enjoyed a scrumptious meal, flashes of red continued to appear on their bellies from time to time. In the end, they were also killed along with the golden crows, with their bodies crumbling and returning to the sea. The old boatman's hand seals had been rapid and majestic-looking, especially compared to the casual flick of the old flood dragon's sleeve. As such, it was immediately obvious who had the upper hand. The gulf between them was immense. "Fire god? This type of ancient god is far too weak," the old flood dragon sneered. Moreover, due to a certain calamity of great proportions, deities who inherit this title are often undeserving and unauthentic. These titles are barely worth a mention compared to formal deities of water, gods who have organized inheritances and are greatly valued by the heavenly emperor. Being a measly golden courtier cultivator, you most likely don't know that the phrase, "fire god boils water," is in and of itself an admission of fear. The first fire god was an ambitious individual who vowed that he would evaporate the 4 seas and vaporize the 5 lakes such that they became clouds and mist in the sky. However, deities of fire following him only dared to say that they would boil water. What does water refer to? Great rivers and large lakes consist of water, while small streams and tiny creeks also consist of water. Perhaps they want to boil some water to make tea. The old boatman wasn't deflated after his technique was easily defeated by the old man in golden robes. While the latter blabbered on, the old boatman switched to another hand seal and clenched his hands into fists before forcefully smashing them together. His feet also assumed a unique stance, and the heavenly official projection from before vanished without a trace. What replaced it was a fearsome face that looked like a powerful guardian. Meanwhile, orbs of crackling lightning started to fly in circles around him. After a while, the old boatman eventually separated his fists and used one fist to heavily thump his chest and abdomen 3 times in a row, causing the spiritual energy in the corresponding acupoints to churn with vigor. At the same time, he unclenched his other fist and held his palm to the sky, bellowing, "Spring thunder drums the abdomen, lakes of lightning pour from the sky. Heed my command, deliver punishment on behalf of the heavens." The sky was clear and blue for tens of thousands of miles, yet a giant whirlpool of roaring thunder and flashing lightning suddenly appeared from thin air. A bolt of snow-white lightning suddenly leaped out and made several turns in midair before smashing down at the elderly golden flood dragon's head. The old man in golden robes disappeared without a trace, yet the bolt of crackling lightning didn't dissipate straight away. Instead, it directly pierced through the surface of the sea and crashed into the depths of the flood dragon trench. Afterward, it bounced backward and illuminated a large region of the sea, causing the surroundings to become a blinding white. There were many flood dragons and their kin hiding at the bottom of the sea, and these were dragons who weren't participating in the conflict. After being astonished by the lightning technique, all of them closed their eyes on instinct, not daring to face it head-on. The bolt of lightning surged out from the sea and flew to someplace in the distance. The old flood dragon in golden robes reappeared above the sea, and it finally appeared a little annoyed as it faced this abnormal bolt of lightning. It no longer appeared as carefree as before, and it didn't try to dodge the attack either. Instead, the old flood dragon stood still and furrowed its brows slightly. It then pinched its long golden eyebrows with its 2 hands, rapidly moving its fingers down and causing 2 bursts of sword light to shoot from its fingertips. The 2 bursts of sword light were approximately 1 meter in length, similar to most swords in the world. One burst of sword light shot toward the bolt of lightning, while the other burst of sword light pierced at some whirlpool that was connected to the small lake of lightning above its head. Both bursts of sword light from his long eyebrows were successful, striking and disappearing together with the bolt of lightning and whirlpool in the sky. Two spectacular light shows erupted in the sky. Sure enough, the old boatman was a rare golden core tier cultivator who had once experienced the mystical powers of Earth immortals. He was masterful in many techniques, and he leaped into the sky, extending an arm and making a grabbing motion. A glowing silver snake spear, too, materialized in his hand, appearing especially dazzling as it directly stabbed at the elderly golden flood dragon. Die, vile beast. 1. The character used here is Kiu, which refers to a dragon youngling, but these are actual mature dragons. They are shorter, hence the small part, but fully grown dragons. 2. An ancient spear model with a wavy blade and a split tip that looks like the mouth of a snake.